Hello and welcome to ATARC's webinar series. Today, topic experts will share strategies that agencies can implement to alleviate the concern of the unknown and make operations more efficient. My name is Kirsten Katsaruba, and I will be moderating today's panel discussion. ATARC stands for the Advanced Technology Academic Research Center, and ATARC is an organization that facilitates collaboration through on-site interaction, learning, and market research. We provide ongoing opportunities for cross-agency collaboration, and we want to begin this session by welcoming all of our attendees. So a special thank you to Lisa Ragusa Fidela and the entire Aqua Security team for making today's event possible. Before we begin, I want to encourage our audience to please submit questions of your own in the Q&A chat. We love for this to be as interactive as possible. And we are also going to be posting a few poll questions throughout. So be sure to respond to those poll questions if you'd like to receive your CPE credit for attending today's event. Okay, with all of that being said, I would love to welcome our panelists. It looks like they're all on camera now, which is great because we're going to begin with, a round of introductions. So please share with us who you are, what agency or organization you represent, and a little bit about your role there, just to kick things off. So if we could begin, Dr. Tina Rodrigue, welcome back to our panel. If you could kick us off with introductions, that would be great.
It would be my pleasure. Dr. Tina Rodrigue, I am the CISO at CFPB, and I have been here for over 5 years. I've also served in CTO and CISO positions at DHS and served as a senior advisor at Federal Student Aid Education.
Thank you. Let's go to Laura next.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Laura Gerhart, and I am at the Office of Management and Budget in the Office of the Federal Chief Information Officer, and I am the Director of Technology Modernization and Data. And within our portfolio, we're working on broad initiatives around enabling capabilities as well as data policies throughout the federal ecosystem.
Thank you. And Derek?
Well, good afternoon. I am in this role for about a month. I started this role with the Air Force Department of the Air Force A1 CTO July 1st. And prior to that, I was with the Army and I ran the Sea Army, the cloud, enterprise cloud for the Army, and the agency that runs it is the Enterprise Cloud Management Agency. So I ran a few hats, which includes the Cloud Services Division Chief, the operations, and then CTO and Chief Architect. So very excited to be here, but thanks.
Very cool. Thank you. And Rachel?
Here it is, my mouse. So hi, I'm Rachel Seil. I'm with the Department of Interior. I'm the senior advisor to our Chief Information Security Officer. So I work in the office of the CIO, but I'm also a co-host or a co-chair for the Federal Low Code, No Code Community of Practice. So I get to work with Laura and her team a lot on different things. So it's kind of fun to see her in a meeting finally. And then, so I've been in federal government for a good number of years, but I've been around the block, and so hello to my fellow DoD brethren. I've done stints in both the Navy and the Marine Corps and loved every second of it.
Great, thank you. And Tony?
Yeah, good afternoon. I'm Tony Plaisy, Department of Navy Chief Information Security Officer. I've been acting, but I've been doing this about 3 years, and with the Navy in general, about 14 years. And before that, I did a lot of IT by retiring from the Army. So lots of military service and industry service, and we bring that to bear for a pretty large portfolio. So I'll be talking from our portfolio of the Department of Navy, as far as the Navy and the Marines, and about 800,000 seats. So lots of things going on with cloud, lots of value. So looking forward to the conversation. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And Paula?
Hi, everyone. I'm Paula Wagner. I'm from the Department of State. I run the Application Design and Delivery Office within Diplomatic Technology, formerly IRM, but we just went through a massive transformation, so we're super excited to be here.
Thank you. And Yusuf?
Thank you. Yusuf Taksiri. I'm with Aqua Security. I'm the Director of Global GRC, oversee the governance, risk management, compliance, and lead their FedRAMP efforts. I am a former government employee. I spent many years serving in a civilian capacity. Before that, I was teaching elementary school, if you can believe that, which quite frankly prepared me to cybersecurity, right? Dealing with kindergartners and first graders is the best experience out there. I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you to the panelists and anyone in the attendees list that serves in the federal government or has served in the military. Thank you for your service.
Thank you. All right, so I'm going to sneak in a quick poll question before we jump into our first question. So for our audience, that'll be up here on the screen momentarily. It is around challenges, which is actually going to be what our first question is. So for the poll question, what aspect of IT modernization poses the greatest challenge for your agency? And then we're going to talk about that. So for our panelists, we don't need to go in any particular order on these questions. As far as responses are concerned, we probably won't have time for every single person to respond to every single question, but we'll get through them as best as we can. And I'd love to hear a few different perspectives for these questions. So if this one resonates with you, I'd like to ask, how do you feel agencies can effectively address the challenges of IT modernization while navigating discretionary budgets and workforce drain? So if anyone on our panel wants to kick things off, I know it's a big topic. We'd love to.
I'll take a stab at it just to have my fellow friends here kind of add in thoughts. So I would say returning back to fundamentals as you look to go into the next iteration of the ecosystem or this, modernization of a system, go back to portfolio rationalization. Think about ways to not only modernize it, but how to streamline it, how to automate it. Look for opportunities that may have not been present. So like with the advent of AI now on the cusp or machine learning, use those, dream big. I would say the bigger that you dream, the more that you can see the art of possible, but obviously having great, voices in the room at that dreaming stage, right? So having people who are budgeteers or people who are logisticians or, your security, more importantly, your security folks at the table to kind of put some, guardrails around that big dream. But that's where I would recommend is, start reaching for the sky.
Love that. Thank you, Rachel. And Paula, go ahead.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I was going to say, I echo what Rachel said. And then I think the other thing that we look at is really about prioritizing our products as well. We don't want to boil the ocean and we want to be able to deliver. So, we're really big on leveraging agile methodologies so that we can have quick wins and be able to show successes, but then also learn from our failures. So fail quickly. And then the other big push that we're trying to do is enhance our workforce. Offering up training, offering up brown bags, doing learning series with, some of our cloud providers. We had, I think 2 weeks ago, a learning series with AWS, and we had over 170 folks from State Department join. So really optimizing kind of what our options are across the department, and working at an enterprise versus silos.
Thank you. Tina, go ahead.
I absolutely agree with Rachel and Paula. And what I would add is making sure that the value proposition is checked and using great discernment, making sure that this is a mission essential requirement and that it is something that is trustworthy, has been attested to, and checks all of the security box as well as the mission box. There's a lot of things that are shiny out in the world, but not everything fulfills the promise. And so I would say that not just at the point of acquisition, but throughout the life cycle, make sure that it's still delivering as you hoped.
Thank you, Tina. Laura?
I think a lot of it from OMB have a slightly different role in terms of helping enable agencies across the federal workforce. And particularly, we've been working on FedRAMP recently. We issued the guidance just last week and really updating and really hoping that that enables a lot of capabilities. One, as others have said, really making sure that the capabilities meet the mission need in an ongoing and iterative way. And we're really hoping we can accelerate mission delivery with the use of cloud solutions that have been vetted in the commercial commercial sector and scale the capabilities and practices that drive both that accelerated delivery, that failing fast, and that agile delivery. And similarly, aligning those resources, through FedRAMP, streamlining the cloud security assessment process, leveraging reuse so agencies are not repeating that, and enabling agencies to really focus on what their unique mission needs are rather than sort of overburdening on repeating duplicative mission duplicative security assessments. And then once they're taking advantage of that cloud native approach and unlocking the data, because there's a lot of better observability with some of these modern tools. And I think, again, to that streamlined, really one of the things that's critical in our new guidance is this presumption of adequacy, which really we hope will, one, it's in the legislation that passed at the end of 22. And we're thinking that's going to increase reuse, and increased reuse can sort of drive down costs, hopefully. You've all probably heard FedRAMP say, do once, use many as a slogan, but many CSOs haven't necessarily felt that in the federal community. And so our goal is to really lean into that presumption of adequacy. Once it's authorized, the controls are assessed throughout the federal community for use. And we also want to make sure that the agencies understand the underlying assessment so they can trust it and use it. And again, that will really help drive that streamline process. And we're really right now starting to engage with other agencies so that they understand it as, it's fresh off the presses. And so want to make sure that that is understood so that folks in the federal community can take advantage of everything that we hope that the FedRAMP program has to offer.
Thank you. Derek, I saw your hand up earlier. Did you still want to add anything?
Oh yeah, absolutely. A lot of this comes down to money, and I know especially with a large enterprise, a large portfolio, we got to start with the big question that nobody wants to answer. How much does it cost to host that legacy application? And it's not just one, but the total cost, the people side of it, the all the licensing, the heating and cooling, and all the things that we've been paying for 20 plus years. But it's the hard question that is sometimes almost impossible to answer, but it needs to get answered because as you can demonstrate through a business case analysis, what is that return on investment? And we're going to have to demonstrate, hey, granted, this is what we pay, and it's a total cost, and then this is where we're going, and this is how quickly, and with all the other elements of that business case analysis, a target architecture, alternative analysis, an acquisition strategy, again, all that formalized, so then thus you have a clear path, but also be able to defend, because it is an acquisition artifact, but it has all the necessary ingredients for a good start point. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, I saw Yusuf's hand up next. Go ahead.
I just wanted to add, utilizing your industry partners is a very important factor. These folks that sell you applications have the right expertise to help you onboard and best utilize it, and they want you to use it, right? Because when renewal time comes, they want to show you that you have value there that you want to renew. So reach out to them. They're not always going to want to charge you support services. In most cases, they'll provide them free of charge or a reduced cost. So reach out to those guys first. There's benefit there.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. All right. And then last comment here, Tony.
Yeah, just to be quick, I think, only thing I would add is, we're going back to the basics too, from an IT asset management perspective. It's essential we know what is accessing our data and that it's authorized and authenticated. So think, of course, zero trust, identity credentialing, access management. We're challenged with people working distributed, remote posture, and we must, and have to re-architect our infrastructure. So accounting for the cloud that's on-prem, cloud that's off-prem, enterprise, tactical, afloat, weapon systems, denied, disrupted, and limited bandwidth means we must know what's on our network and what the state and security posture is. So all of that is going to this idea that we must be strategic and we have to be data-driven and threat-informed. So all of that is helping us to prioritize our initiatives and helping us to prioritize our investments.
Excellent. Thank you. Appreciate you all jumping in and sharing your perspectives with us. I'm going to call for poll question number 2 now, which is also going to tie into our next question. So first and foremost for the audience, again, poll question number 2 is up on the screen. What is the primary concern that your agency has when migrating to the cloud? There is a whole slew of options there. So moving on to our next round of questions. And again, if you feel inclined to respond first, just go ahead and shoot your hand up or come off mute to signal to me that you want to respond. But the next question is, what are some best practices that should be followed when migrating to the cloud to ensure compliance with cybersecurity requirements and successful modernization? So if a few panelists could share with us a best practice or two from their experience. Go ahead, Tina.
One of the things that we do is shift left with our partners. We don't wait until the build phase. We shift left to the build, left to the buy, left to the budget, all the way, as my friend Derek said, to the business case, to make sure that the total cost of ownership includes those costs of security, not again just for the acquisition, but through the full life cycle. And part of what we try to do is be a strong advisor to ensure that all of the various aspects are included. And then we work in parallel with the teams through all of those so that after authorization, as they get to the betterment stage, we make sure that not only have we been their partner, but that we have been training them the entire time to ensure that the system succeeds the first time.
Thank you. Tony, go ahead.
I think one of the points I'd bring up is just recognizing that a lift and shift only does not maximize the use of the cloud. It only moves legacy or bad code from one environment to the other. So I really appreciate from where I sit that we now have access to enterprise cloud capabilities from world-class vendors. But we stress using the security requirements guide that's put out to help us standardize the assessment and authorization process so we can maximize reciprocity, which was talked about earlier. And it also covers all our mission business owners to detail what their responsibilities are, what the technical implementation needs to be. All that goes to secure configuration. So maximizing any of the work that's done by FedRAMP that was mentioned earlier. And we have our zero trust strategy and roadmaps, and we're moving beyond traditional security methods and working to reduce those network attack surfaces and enable risk management. But I would also like to note from the start, we must know that how we're going to defend those cloud environments. So we must have cybersecurity service providers aligned. You need to know and understand the native tools. Your defenders need to have insights into our cloud environments. So if we plan that correctly, we implementing identity credentialing access management to safeguard those cloud environments, and we are regularly doing the same patching and cyber hygiene that we did when we weren't in the cloud, and doing it correctly and continuously and making sure our people are trained, I think it becomes a real force multiplier in what we're trying to do.
Thank you, Tony. Yusuf, you're up next.
Tony covered pretty much all of it. Well said, well said. I mean, the only couple of things I wanted to add is, having a migration strategy ahead of time, right? Before you even decide what you're going to do. Partnering with the right cloud service provider that meets whatever security and compliance requirements you have. FedRAMP, there's many cloud service providers on the FedRAMP marketplace. Start there. Partnering with the right CNAP to follow the shift left strategy there. That's very important. And definitely, this is something that folks do not think about as much. Backup before you migrate, right? Make sure that you have proper backups. Test those backups before you migrate to the cloud. Other than that, I mean, what was said earlier is on point.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Rachel.
Yeah, I would also add, especially when you're moving into the cloud environment, that you consider the new threats. These are threats that may have not ever been present before in some cases. So understanding and learning different environmentals and threats, then those vectors that can be, exploited. So understanding the environment from a security standpoint definitely helps, because then you're able to build in and have those communications with your vendors saying, you know, here's what a new defense in depth should look like for me. Having that cloud security stack in place is very, very important, because at the end of the day, it's about the data, right? So we need to ensure that the data is protected at all costs.
Thank you. And Laura?
Really echo what a lot of others said in terms of FedRAMP, as well as not lifting, shifting. One thing's in particular from the FedRAMP new memo is really the stress on real world threat assessment. You'll see a couple mentions to red teaming, and again, security reviews that can happen sort of at the request of the FedRAMP board, you know, potentially in light of particular events or even emerging, you know, threat vulnerabilities. So I think as we look toward FedRAMP being a really place, and hoping that our updated FedRAMP guidance really moves toward a security first program, that we really can build confidence in the cybersecurity requests or requirements, but also really focusing on novelty in that, and adaptability, and like thinking through the complexity of these cloud environments, and while taking advantage of the unique capabilities of cloud, that really I carry a complete with Tony around not just lifting and shifting, because that is retaining the sort of paradigms of a non-cloud environment and really moving toward what the cloud capabilities are, both for the cybersecurity, but I would also say that often, you know, can help with the user experience or the customer experience throughout the life cycle by really taking advantage of those cloud native capabilities.
Thank you. Derek, go ahead. You're muted. Still muted.
How's that?
Now I hear you.
Oh God, sorry. I'm going to talk about the big elephant in the room, the people side of this. You know, the workforce necessary, the workforce needed to do this right. So, as everyone knows, the modernization there's many ways of doing it in the cloud, but being able to discern the bad from good is gold, is platinum actually. You know, and as I've noticed through some of the experience, when you go into this, we rely on the integrators, the outside parties to help us with the partners. But in reality, we as a government are going to have that knowledge to say, wait a minute, there's a better way to do this. This is not in the best interest of the government, not just from a security perspective, but from, you know, a cost perspective. The life in the cloud, a lifetime is like 3 years. You know, what you've done 3 years ago is going to be completely different than what you're doing today. But you know, investing in your workforce is paramount. If you look at a lot of the cloud strategies, AI strategies, the first objective many times is the people. You know, getting that workforce so that they can help you, and to make sure that that works together as a team, but with the right ingredients. Thanks.
Absolutely. Thank you. And Tina, did you want to add anything else?
Well, Derek has an excellent point. And the other aspect of the workforce that we have to take into account is that Brigadier Admiral Greg Tuhill, when he was our first CISO, noted that the greatest threat is a negligent or indifferent workforce. And that in the cloud space in particular, it's misconfiguration that causes the most number of threats. So we have to make sure that our workforce is cloud enabled themselves, and that they have the skills and the desire to do the right thing at all times, because we have seen the threat vector and it is us.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much for your responses. So we're going to move on to our next question. This is question number 3, which is, how can artificial intelligence and machine learning be leveraged to streamline processes and improve decision-making within federal agencies? So I'd love to hear from a few of you on this topic as well. If you've had any experience with this, Yusuf, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you. This is one of my favorite topics ever. So AI and LM have been around for a while, right? That's not new. What's out there now, what everyone's talking about, is generative AI. And one of the things that it can help do is just automate routine tasks, such as data entry, processing, just freeing up valuable human resources that SAC analysts used to spend hours and hours looking through logs now can use human-like language to ask the question and get an answer within seconds, which is very important, especially in today's just lack of talent or lack of available talent, if you will. These technologies can also help analyze vast amounts of data in a matter of seconds, which provides better visibility, which helps with decision making, which just helps with efficiently allocating resources to the right areas and right projects.
Yeah, thank you, Yusuf. And Paula.
Hey, thanks. I was super excited to see this question on here because at State, generative AI has been helping us a lot. We recently launched, which I think is really cool, an SBU State Chat for all of our folks across the department and our folks in embassies and posts around the world, because a lot of it was, reading documents that were, 20 some pages long in foreign languages. And so we created this State Chat so that folks could upload these documents, get a synopsis, even look at translation, or just simply ask questions of like where to find something at State. And, we've been beta testing for a good part of 6 months now with the Center of Analytics to a big success. And then we recently just demoed to the secretary. There was one slip up, but our analyst fixed it. And so it worked out fine. But it's nice being able to leverage that and then be able to help with public diplomacy on that.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing. And Laura, go ahead.
One of the things that we heard loud and clear from public comment when we released the FedRAMP memo for draft was around how we might think about the use of AI in FedRAMP. And one of the things that was an update into the final guidance was having FedRAMP in the GSA team in collaboration with the newly established FedRAMP board, looking at how AI might be leveraged for assessing the actual security controls. It's some of the thing, again, what Yusuf said around monitoring. And so at this point, we're sort of looking at what that initial pilot might look at for some of the assessment of controls within the FedRAMP authorization process, as well as in the continuous monitoring. And then I think the other thing, too, is recognizing that FedRAMP is a way for commercial and emerging technologies to enter government and that was definitely something put forward in the AI executive order. One of the things, the collaboration that was an action item between our office and FedRAMP from the executive order was this emerging technology prioritization framework. And the first capabilities that they're really looking to prioritize are generative AI in chatbots, in debugging tools, and image generation, as well as the API versions of that, because that's often how you'll build in those capabilities into your existing ecosystems. And FedRAMP is looking for commercial industry partners for that who would meet the criteria from the technical capability and can demonstrate agency demand for that initial round of prioritization by August 31st. So again, to the extent that you're aware of vendor capabilities that you think like you would believe and surmise could help streamline those processes, like now is a great time between now and now, I guess August, the end of the month, to work with those industry partners and help make sure that they're getting aware of the emerging technology prioritization framework, because I firmly believe that there's a lot of opportunities here and want to make sure that we're supportive of that through the prioritization.
Absolutely. Thank you. And Derek.
This is from my experience with the Army, and I saw a really good proof of concept that got me excited. Using AI to do contract vehicle development. So writing all the very complex, now becoming more and more lengthy contracts, but using the AI to help shape those, ensuring that you cover all the gaps. And I think that's going to be something that we in the federal government are going to be relying on more and more. But again, yeah, another lens to look at.
Absolutely. All right, thank you. Let's see here. Maybe we'll do a third poll question, which is, how confident are you in your agency's ability to handle cybersecurity threats while modernizing IT systems? So again, this is for our audience at home. If you want to receive your CPE credit, be sure to respond to this poll question that's up here on the screen. Okay, and then moving right along to our fourth question here. For our panelists, again, how can IT be simplified or improved to better support modernization efforts in federal agencies? Anyone want to jump in on this? Rachel, go ahead.
I'll take that. Actually, I'm going to give a shout out and probably pull Laura up. I would say doing exactly what our friends in the FedRAMP area, especially OMB, are doing. It is making policy and governance and certainly all of the regulation living, evolutionary, more on the cusp of becoming this living thing that helps us enable our modernization journeys to getting to that goodness. So when we talk about, that IT governance, we're in fast-paced times. So doing what they're doing on making it possible to utilize as much, generative AI or any type of technology that's coming up inside of our governance process possible, but having those, parameters of governance, true governance at place so that we're protecting our missions and the people in which we're serving. That's crucial. I mean, the bridges that it builds not only with industry but to each other in this particular case it's revolutionary in where we were, and I would say 10 years ago. So doing what they're doing and taking those cues from OMB and applying them in our own areas, that's what's going to make the huge difference. So Laura, you and Dr. Tina can certainly jump in, but it's props off to that next step in our nation's history.
Sure, absolutely. Who wants to go next? Laura, did you want to say anything?
Sure. Well, thank you, Rachel. It's not often that we get compliments from the agency, so always happy to hear that. And in particular, I think, again, with the document and the policy that we're just issued, it really reflects sort of a new governance model within FedRAMP in order to sort of help enable what the cloud market and what the agency needs of cloud are today. In particular, we're moving, to a new governance board, the FedRAMP board, which was just established. It's a lot more strategic and will be focused on agencies within that partnering for joint agencies. They will not necessarily not anticipated to be issuing authorizations themselves. That also opens up some new authorization paths, again, to ensure that security. However, making sure that the market can scale to what the needs are today. And then similarly, a lot of industry engagement with the legislation, the Federal Secure Advisory Committee, the FSCAC, which is a Federal Advisory Committee Act committee that works with industry as well as government to really make sure that as we're moving forward, we understand both the challenges of agencies and the challenges of industry and engaging that. And then separately, we believe a lot of this work is incredibly technical. And so with that, the PMO is staffing up with a lot of technical expertise, and we've stood up in collaboration with GSA, the technical advisory group. These are really top-notch federal SMEs that can really be an early ear and often ear to what FedRAMP is thinking in terms of moving forward guidance and making sure it's realistic, it's practical, and it sort of takes out a lot of the nuance of it. And so that simplification and that those tight feedback loops, as you know from shifting left, as others had said, moves toward that. And then similarly around simplification, we're also in a broader ecosystem, right? That there are other regulatory frameworks that are outside of the federal space, external framework that publicly traded companies often and go through for a lot of their other, sensitive workloads that might not be for federal IT systems. So one of the things we're really looking forward to moving forward as a result of the FedRAMP guidance is leveraging external frameworks within the FedRAMP authorizations. And that's going to really simplify and minimize some of the rework that customers have already done in order to meet high sensitivity of data workloads they might already have.
Thank you, Laura. Okay, Tina.
Well, I think FedRAMP, for example, is one of the most wonderful things we have done because, for example, for a small agency, that saves us 22 times the amount of work that it takes in order to get to an authorization. Also, federal shared services like the Department of Justice SOC, where we don't have to do any security work, are also amazing for small agencies like CFPB, where we can just take advantage of the wonderful work done by cabinet level agencies. And so then a one and done approach makes it so much simpler. Instead of having 400 SOCs in the federal space, we could have one large one that, or several large ones as needed. The last thing I would say is as much cross training as we can do so that everyone can laterally move into situations. It makes your solutions more robust. It makes your career path more robust. It makes your people more robust, and you have better retention. So whatever you can do in terms of rotations or making sure that you have cross-agency work really has made a big difference for CFPB, and I would encourage it.
Awesome, thank you. Any additional comments here? Derek, I see you're off mute. Did you want to add anything?
Oh yeah, I was just taking down some notes, but I think Tina, you mentioned a couple of things that really sparked my note taking. Is taking these common shared services, the cybersecurity, and making it more of an enterprise and being able to deliver that not just for one small office, not for one just agency, but be able to take advantage of the economies of scale, and especially in the work that we do. It is something that you're going to have a much wider visibility or much wider stance. And I think, as the government, as we, especially in the DoD, are doing that, I think it's only going to be, us putting us in a much better position. But yeah.
Thank you. Yusuf, go ahead.
I just wanted to, as someone on the industry side dealing with FedRAMP and PMO and OMB, I just wanted to say thank you. I've had the opportunity to take 9 different products through the FedRAMP authorization process. It's always been consistent. It's always been on point. So I just wanted to add that note there and say thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Tina, is your hand still up, or did you just forget to put it down? Yeah. Okay. And then Tony, were you raising your hand earlier?
Yeah, I think a lot of good feedback. I think we're looking at how to incorporate our requirements just much earlier. Again, the shift left. And then we're looking at how do we certify our processes versus each application by application. So a lot of work is going on now in our rapid assess and engineering software engineering process. A lot of work is going on with the acquisition community to better refine, ensure that the requirements that are needed by our service provider, our protection forces, are incorporated into the system's requirements. So if we can certify processes, our goal is to be able to enable and deliver software and capabilities sooner, which is what is the demand by our business owners. So it's also seen as a cybersecurity as enabler, because every time I think about governance at the end of the process, we get a bad name. So as we continue to figure ways to make sure it's incorporated from the start and it's transparent and known, and that way we're able to get the more value and be seen as an enabler working with our business units.
Thank you. All right. So for our next question, Yusuf, you actually kind of touched on it before, but maybe we can talk about it a little bit more in terms of the role that collaboration with industry partners plays in supporting IT modernization and cloud security initiatives in the federal government. So if there's anything else you want to share from your perspective, and then we'll speak to the government side.
Certainly. Partnering with industries is crucial. Industry partners, as I said earlier, bring specialized expertise. In most cases, innovative solutions and cutting edge technologies. A lot of smaller companies out there are looking for government design partners, right? They want to know what your problem is, and they will work hard to solve it for you. So reach out. Partnerships also allow agencies to leverage best practice, benefit from latest cyber technology advancements and technologies, and just ensure that their IT infrastructure is resilient and scalable.
Absolutely. Tony, go ahead.
So I agree with everything Yusuf said, and I also come from a different perspective. Again, absolutely essential that we partner with industry. And I think I'm very proud of the Department of Navy that we do exactly a lot of that, from the technology perspective to in order to give us that, that keen edge that we need in order to win in our battles. So equally, we work very hard to partner with industry to promote protections on their infrastructure, right? Because we want to make sure that our data is protected on industry infrastructure, and we want to make sure that that innovation that they're delivering is protected and we're able to use it and deliver it. So again, I would like to thank what industry does. And I don't want to point out it's just equally important that they protect their data and their innovation as well.
Absolutely. Rachel.
Yeah, I was actually going to take it from a different stance, and that is that understanding and working with partners, industry partners, you learn a lot. So you get to see things before they obviously are made their way to government in general. So you get to see not only the threats that they're, facing, but you also get to see the ecosystems, you get to see the new technologies in use. So you get a kind of beacon in the way that you can bring those big ideas, like I talked about earlier, dreaming big, back to the table and back to home, if you want to say it that way, so that you can work with folks like Laura over in OMB, or, any team, to try to start bridging gaps where we could, preventively bridge them. And that's a big step in working with partners. So I've enjoyed that in DOI, and we're actually using it within the cyberspace. So we're looking across the horizon to see what the new threats are.
Awesome. Thank you. Derek?
I do my partnership with vendors through proof of concepts. I love them because my job is to establish that ecosystem with all the guardrails, and I can invite the vendors to come in. And if you have a new technology, you have a new solution, we'll come and test it out in what we have. And many times that's going to bring up things that we didn't know, the requirements that may not been really thought of, but becomes evident. It really does also innovation. It really pushes the innovation, because it also opens the door for small businesses too, because they may have a piece of technology or solution, but if we, of course, provide that closed restricted network, that place where they can they can test it out with all the guardrails for security, of course. But I think, again, proof of concepts are a great way to solidify that partnership.
Absolutely. Laura, go ahead.
Yeah, I think, as you know, B really appreciated all the industry feedback we got in terms of that helped improve what we just released with the FedRAMP guidance, as well as, it's huge because the marketplace is primarily industry vendors. There are the vast majority of the offerings within FedRAMP are commercial services. And we know in particular, especially with the SaaS market, there's a huge opportunity to leverage even more industry opportunities and capabilities, and hoping that we're able to really leverage them going forward. I think additionally too, we're making sure and working very closely, especially with vendors that had been working with the previous JAB, the Joint Authorization Board, and making sure that those in-process vendors still are on a path to authorization, and making sure that, again, that the agencies that were working for that and the experience of industry is really met in terms of the expectations that would have been under the previous structure.
Thank you. And Paula?
Yeah, one thing that has helped us at State Department is not just, having industry be supportive of us, but being a partner with us. So, like, for example, we use Gmail, and then we also use Office 365. And one of the complaints we got from the field was, can we sync our calendars so that they don't have to look at two separate calendars? And so being able to contact Microsoft, being able to contact Google, and bringing everyone into a space together, and figuring out together how we can fix this problem, but then make it as an option for other industries or other bureaus or other agencies that might have a similar issue. It's something that now Amazon or Google and Microsoft can now offer, is they can say, look, now our calendars can be interoperable wherever in the federal space. So I think it's helpful for a learning aspect for us, but I think it's also helpful as a learning aspect for industry working with the federal agencies, and understanding what needs are there that they might not have realized prior.
Absolutely. Well, thank you all so much for that. And I think we'll even have time for our last question before we jump into our round of key takeaways from today. But this last question is on future trends. So what future trends or emerging technologies should federal agencies prepare to integrate into their IT modernization plans? If we could have a few of you hit on a trend that you've been seeing. Anyone want to jump in?
I mean, the biggest one, and I'll let my I'll let the federal employees answer this, but the biggest one is AI right now, generative AI. It's something that because of the executive order, something that most agencies are looking into integrating and just making part of their technology stack. There are others that may come down the pipeline, like quantum computing and such, but artificial intelligence, especially Gen AI right now, is a topic of the day, if you will.
Absolutely. Tina.
What I would add on to Yusuf's comment is making sure that at all times the AI is ethical, responsible, and is not hallucinating unpredictably, that we leverage it where it is professionalized, but not where we're unclear as to the outcomes. Post-quantum cryptography is definitely a trend, but really just making sure that anything we produce is future proof, so that, again, you look at that value proposition and make sure that you are doing things with technology and humans combined. If you just do one or the other, you will not get good results. Brynja Olufsen has shown you have to modernize your business as you modernize your technology, and humans are the key to that.
Definitely. Thank you. Paula, go ahead.
Yeah, and agree with what Tina had said. And, one, I already kind of mentioned earlier that we created State Chat with generative AI, but we also have leveraged generative AI with cables. State Department still uses cables. Little known fact for a lot of us. And we have generative AI around those cables so that it helps with some predictive analysis for our partners for diplomacy across our bureaus and agencies, and looking at the various cables from the different embassies and posts have made it so that folks can kind of see some analytic results that help them with decision making. And so we've started a little bit of a pilot, but it's growing, and I can see that in more areas when it comes to diplomacy and being able to interact with other government agencies.
Thank you, Paula. Rachel, go ahead.
I was actually going to hit on something, but Dr. Tina teed it up for me, is those skill sets for your workforce, for your partners in the sense of your government partners, skill sets like privacy. And I'm talking from a legal stance. So the ethics was exactly what the tee up was, is that you need to have certain skill sets present, and that's at every layer of every aspect of your organization. And that's the ethics, that's understanding privacy and understanding things like data. Data is paramount, especially when you start talking about algorithms and things, how systems are built around that data and that congruency of the data. So having skill sets that aren't necessarily prevalent today across the entire workforce is going to make this better.
Thank you. And Laura?
Yeah, building on everyone said around AI, but I think another thing too is especially one of our priorities within OFCIO is that data is a strategic asset. And so in particular, sort of a meta comment on trends is measurement and knowing what to measure. And that's something we're also really focused on. And especially, how do we know that we're actually sort of accomplishing what we're saying we're accomplishing, but for developing specific metrics. And I think in tandem with that, as we are rolling out on FedRAMP, right, we can say, hey, it's going to do all these things. But if we're not sort of monitoring that, we can just say whatever we want, right? And so with that, FedRAMP on their blog post just this past week released a set of metrics for public comment. And again, especially as we're looking to move the needle on these things, we want input from everyone across the federal and industry community to comment and say, how should we be monitoring ourselves? And in particular, that's open for public comment until August 29th. And so as we're trying to look at those trends, we have to be the ones monitoring that. So please comment, take a look, and encourage you all to submit that so that we can be holding ourselves accountable. Because again, in all these things, sort of with the ethics, the other part of it is the accountability of it, and really trying to invest in that as we move things forward.
Thank you, Laura. And Tina, is your hand still up from the last round, or did you want to add anything else? Just wanted to check. No, that's okay. That's great, because you can start us off with our round of key takeaways. So we're about 10 minutes till the end, and I just want to hear from each of you on what it is that you want to leave our audience with, the most interesting thing you found from this discussion, or whatever it may be, where they can connect with you. So Dr. Tina Rodrigue, if you could please start us off.
While we have a lot of differences between our various mission areas, we have so many commonalities. And so an enterprise approach across the federal government makes a lot of sense where we can pull those commonalities. Opportunities like FedRAMP, Federal Shared Services, and then areas where we can have a steward serve the whole space makes a lot of sense to me, whether it be human initiatives like reskilling, technological initiatives like SOC as a service, or emerging technologies. I think that we're better together and we're stronger when we work as a whole. That will all become a better future.
Thank you. And Tony, what is your key takeaway?
A lot of great discussion, a lot of recognition that we're grappling with some of the same challenges and how to modernize our governance frameworks, how to modernize our policies that ultimately drive modernization quicker. I was listening to Dr. Rodriguez, and I agree with a lot of things that were said. Working together, looking at shared services, we're spending a lot of brain power trying to look at how we deliver services. What are those, sir? How can we gain the efficiencies when we are able to modernize quickly? Me as CISO, I see a lot of cybersecurity that's improving, right? By getting rid of a lot of our legacy things we had on the network. So I am out there trying to work very hard to help all of those modernization efforts. So we want to do things in a more modern fashion, knowing what's on our network, knowing in near real time, and being able to make those risk-based decisions in how we do business. So a lot of takeaways, but I think we're all on that journey of how can we effectively leverage AI, and how can we do it with those guardrails that were discussed, and how can we deliver it so folks are doing it in a secure fashion, that we're enabling them to do it and creating those environments. So I appreciate being an opportunity to listen and have some good takeaways and listening to my colleagues on the panel.
Absolutely. Thank you. Derek?
I think we touched on the cybersecurity elements, and this is my soapbox. Cybersecurity in the cloud consists of 3 pillars. Number 1, architecture. Number 2, governance. And number 3, risk management. If you don't have those 3 pillars, you don't have cloud cybersecurity. It's something, again, that's it starts from the day one when this actually becomes an idea all the way to production and to the end of the life cycle. But it is a shared responsibility. Cybersecurity involves everybody that's on this call, everyone that's involved in the effort. But again, it's 3 pillars, my soapbox.
Thank you. Rachel?
There we go. Get the cursor over to the mute button. I would say it's definitely learning, listening, and observing. So certainly working back to basics, like Derek had said earlier, just taking it and bringing it back to basics and then building it up again to look across and see what others are doing, communicating, collaborating, really getting back to how do we empower one another to make that thing happen? Because maybe somebody has already tripped over those typical hurdles. So what I definitely said is, what I learned is to take lessons learned back and really think through it. So I would say, do all of the things that you know to do, but then don't be afraid to ask friends in different agencies, hey, how did you do it? And having those dialogues. I really appreciate everybody here, and definitely couldn't have been more reinforced of what we're doing in the Department of Interior on some of the things that we're grappling with as far as modernization.
Thank you. Paula?
Well, so much has been already said, but I will say I've learned that there's some resources out there and the other agencies that I will be reaching out to for more information when it comes to app dev and modernization. So thanks.
Yeah. Thank you. Laura, what's your takeaway?
I think, you heard it a few times here from multiple panelists, that modernization isn't just turning off tools that no longer have a workforce. It's really reorienting toward iteration, toward continuous change, to and really to the end goal of better meeting mission in a way that we weren't capable of delivering before with like previous technologies. And all the while, as part of that, having the foundation of cybersecurity and also leveraging, the federal community, and where we can, tools like FedRAMP that we can sort of do once, use many, so that other agencies are supporting you in delivering your own mission by sort of reusing some of the authorizations that they're working toward, and leveraging that the newer capabilities as they're going to be increasingly rolling out and only going to accelerate from there.
Thank you. And Yusuf, we will close it out with you.
Thank you. Just two things to add. As you're deciding on your cloud partners or your cloud migration partners, and if you do choose ones that are FedRAMP authorized, it's a great place to start. Just pay attention to the customer responsibilities matrix, right? They don't take care of everything for you. There is a part there that you're responsible for. It could be small. In most cases it is, but there is a part there you should pay attention to. The other thing is just ensuring staff training, right? These folks that are currently maintaining and managing these legacy applications, once those applications are brought to the 21st century, right? What do you do with them? So make sure that they're trained in these new technologies, make sure that you're providing training and resources to them so they can continue to manage and maintain these applications they've owned the majority of their careers from a legacy system into a cloud environment.
Well, thank you all so much for participating today on the panel, and those at home who've tuned in. It's been such a great hour. It's completely flown by. And of course, I want to thank our partners at Aqua Security for making today's event happen. So before you sign out, there's one last poll question for our audience that'll be up on the screen here shortly. Just if you'd like to receive your CPE credit. So go ahead and say yes to that. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. And I hope you have a great rest of your week. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.